Our guest today is President and CEO of Windows to the World Communications, WTTW Channel 11. WTTW reaches 2 million weekly viewers over a 4-state area. Our guest today earned his Master's in Arts Administration from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and studied at Boston University Tanglewood Institute. He is married to Julie and is a proud father of 3 beautiful children, Carl, Sarah, and Megan. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Schmidt. Dan?
Thank you, Jay. I'm honored to be here today. Despite our scheduled topic today, I know the shocking events in Paris and then the week before in Beirut, and before that the shocking downing of the aircraft over Syria. I know that our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families, and all of us struggle to make sense out of the senseless. And in discussing the future of public media, you can be sure that we will play an important role in covering and debating public policy response to this violence and future conflicts as they unfold throughout the world and in our own city. We have our share of violence as well. In this regard, allow me to put out a quick program note. Tomorrow at 9 p.m., WTTW will present the third in a series of in-depth documentaries on the origins and growth of ISIS. And you can find all 3 of these documentaries on our website at WTTW.com. And I believe, Ann Gleason, they are already posted, so you can even get a jump on tomorrow's program. Jay, as you've often said in the past, WTTW and the City Club have enjoyed a long and successful partnership. And it's no wonder. Given that our 2 organizations share core values, we're both dedicated to promoting civil discourse, something increasingly rare in this world, also creating an environment for public policy debate without bias or agenda. I will concede, though, Jay, that WTTW, which celebrated our 60th anniversary this fall, is a relative adolescent compared to the City Club. So I hope you will, as Ronald Reagan once famously said to Walter Mondale, excuse our youth and inexperience in this area. We're learning from the City Club. On behalf of WTTW, I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the City Club's generous support of our candidate forums over the years as well. Your participation has been invaluable, and we look forward to many, many more future collaborations. So I would like to begin my talk by showing you a spot that we've been sharing with our viewers lately. I think it does a pretty good job of teeing up a discussion on how the media landscape has changed and how we are experiencing it going forward. So please roll that spot.
This is a box that shows you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now, the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, anywhere. Break out of the box with WTTW.
So yes, the world has changed, and it continues to change at a breathtaking pace. It's an incredibly exciting time in media, and in public media in particular. And I want to talk today about the 2 sides of this equation. Content distribution, that's all of the new technologies emerging, and content selection, because it's all about content. That's really what it comes down to. Of course, I'll be doing it mostly from my public television perspective, but I do want to take note of a number of our wonderful public radio colleagues in the audience. And of course, a huge part of public media. Some of us in this room may remember a time when the only box that brought us television programming was plugged into the wall in our living room, hooked up to a rooftop antenna, like millions of others that dotted the landscape. And if you're old enough, you may even remember a time when, if you happened to doze off watching the late movie, you might wake in the wee hours to grainy footage of patriotic scenes set to the national anthem, followed by a test pattern, and then fade to black. That, as they used to say, meant that you and everyone else had reached the end of your broadcast day. It's hard to imagine now, but as late as 1985, many stations signed off at midnight. And in an age before cable, internet, and social media, that left only radio and maybe your newspaper to keep you company late at night. Today, there's no end to our broadcast day. Our day is 24/7 and mobile, with a myriad of options on hundreds of channels and a variety of on-demand digital platforms where the content is available anytime and anywhere. A recent presentation by media consultant Michael Wolff asserted that employed adults, on average, spend more than half of their waking hours online consuming some kind of media. And the lion's share of that is spent watching video on TV and other platforms. And time spent is only likely to increase as more new content and technology become available. Here's another statistic. Traditional appointment television viewing is still the most popular viewing method of choice among audiences. And according to Nielsen, a whopping 93% of all video watching is done via traditional and time-shifted television. So needless to say, this is all great news for anyone in the television media business as we leverage new content distribution platforms to widen our reach to new audiences. In addition to over-the-air, cable, and satellite, WTTW and PBS content can be accessed on our website, on smartphones, on tablets, on social media platforms, and via over-the-top boxes like Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, etc., even on Xbox. So while the box is still a powerful portal to our audience, it will never again be the only one. Consider the proliferation of internet-delivered subscription streaming services. From Sling TV and Crackle to CBS All Access and NBC's TV Everywhere. Even HBO now has a standalone service that doesn't require a cable subscription. Another important distribution trend is the emergence of digital-first original programming and experimentation with release timing. Netflix quietly led the trend in early 2012 with Lilyhammer, a series about a fictional New York gangster, following it up a year later with a bigger splash, releasing 13 episodes of House of Cards in one day. Amazon, Hulu, PBS Digital Studios, and many others are producing and releasing digital-first content. For our part, WTTW has produced and released 3 digital-first series with more to come. And in a new twist, and I think kind of a gutsy one, CBS has acquired a new iteration of the Star Trek television series, and the premiere episode, of course, will be offered on the traditional CBS television network. But after that, the rest of the series is only available on CBS All Access for a subscription fee. But even Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, according to Emily Steele of the New York Times, have, quote, suddenly found themselves playing a new role, that of the establishment. She quotes a Barclays media analyst who said, quote, in a world where HBO and CBS and all of these guys are trying to go to the internet, it looks like all of the guys on the internet are trying to come to the television. So the worlds are actually converging in both directions. Speaking of convergence, it's probably the #1 business issue facing the media landscape today. How content producers, platform technologies, and distribution service providers come together, or not, will have a major effect on the future of all media. Social media also is a major factor on the consumer side of things, as we all know. Social media and messaging are key drivers in the proliferation of media content and have transformed what was once a passive viewing experience to an interactive two-way, and social experience where the viewer is not only in charge of how and what he or she consumes, but also has an impact on what becomes popular as content is shared virally across personal networks. Of the many game changers in our industry, social media has changed everything. The bottom line is we all have to test all paths of content distribution and take full advantage of the opportunities they offer us to better serve our viewers. So this leads us to the other side of the equation, content selection. Because let's face it, everything we do starts with content. And there's so much content out there to select. There's a question I used to be asked all the time. It goes like this. With all of these cable channels trying to jump on the public media bandwagon and chisel away at your brand with their own PBS-like genres, think history, arts, science, biography, history, how are you going to compete? How are you going to thrive? Well, the truth is, I'm never asked about this anymore. Why? I think it's because the individual niche audiences that these services were trying to serve couldn't support and sustain their advertising and early subscription-based business models. What else would explain how these channels have morphed to providing programs like Pawn Stars, Married at First Sight, and Long Island Medium, or Cancun Spring Break, Carjackers. Oh yeah, and then there's X-rated High. And then there's the new naked genre. Believe it, I mean, this is out there. Dating naked? Selling naked. That's a reality show, a real estate agent selling property in clothing optional communities. And yes, of course, there's the latest one, Naked and Afraid. So I'm sure you won't be surprised to know that according to Nielsen's NPower May 2014 report, PBS viewers are not drawn to these niche channels very much. 82% do not watch A&E, 84% do not watch CNN, 89% are nowhere near MSNBC, 79% don't watch Discovery, and 73% don't watch the History Channel. Now, I'm not knocking these shows, really, believe me. This is what the marketplace produces, and a lot of people love them. But public media exists to provide a content alternative available to everyone, and that's what we set out to do. In his review of Television is the New Television, a book about TV's firm footing in the otherwise disruptive media landscape, and it's by Michael Wolff, but believe it or not, a different Michael Wolff than the one I referenced earlier. Critic Jacob Weisberg said, quote, "Good old-fashioned television delivers something that these social optimizers, clickbaiters, and video clip jobbers," now, I don't know what a clip jobber is, but that's what he said, can't. This is what they can't, which is to keep an audience immersed in stories with a beginning, middle, and end. The late Apple co-founder and visionary Steve Jobs said this, quote, "In my career, I found that the best people are the ones that really understand the content. And they're a pain in the butt to manage. But you put up with it because they're so great at the content, and that's what makes great products. It's not process, it's content," end quote. Incidentally, this interview surfaced in a documentary called Triumph of the Nerds, The Rise of Accidental Empires, which of course aired on WTTW. In the future, we may not even have today's terrestrial transmitters, and owning and controlling the distribution pipeline really won't matter. What really matters is that our content can be found where people expect to find it. Distribution technologies have changed and will change again and again and again. And you know, it's another talk. We could talk all about the trends in distribution technologies and where they may or may not be headed. But really, if you want to talk about the future, it's content. Content drives everything. No matter what technological innovations are to come, the future of public media is rooted in the quality and value of our content. And when it comes to innovative content, public media has always been a trailblazer. Did you know that PBS presented the very first unscripted reality show back in 1973? It was called An American Family, a groundbreaking 12-part weekly series that followed the daily lives of the Loud family of Santa Barbara, California, over a 7-month period. And yes, that really was their surname. It was certainly a reality show in every sense of the word. An American Family was in the vanguard in another important way because it also featured, as PBS stated in its program description, the first gay person on television who was, quote, an integral member of American family life. This is back in 1973. While Ken Burns may not have been the first to pioneer binge watching, that would be the 1977 miniseries Roots. How many people here remember Roots? Quite a phenomenon, and it was way ahead of its time. But Ken Burns was the first to employ this technology with a documentary series when PBS aired his multi-part film, The Civil War. Interestingly enough, The Civil War, thanks to PBS Learning Media, every day in America is being viewed in 2,500 classrooms with teachers teaching against curricular standards that historical period. And there's many, 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 many more classrooms airing PBS and our local content in their instructional activities. Did you know that early childhood education was not a focus on national television until 1969? This is when PBS introduced a show rooted in the concept of advancing preschool literacy called Sesame Street. There were local educational programs for kids, though, and WTTW was among the first with series such as Totem Club and Dr. Poison's Universe. But nothing was widely available to kids everywhere until Big Bird, Elmo, Kermit, and their multi-ethnic group of friends arrived on the scene to teach our children not just about the alphabet, but about the world around them. While public media has been about content and storytelling innovation from the beginning, I have to say innovation in this area is more important now than ever. Unlike the niche cable channels I referred to earlier, it's fair to say that we are experiencing a second golden age of television as writers, directors, and performers bring their talents from the big screen to the small. So how can public media thrive in this crowded marketplace? This is sort of like the question I used to be asked about those niche channels. You know, we all know that there is this incredible, wonderful wealth of content coming from HBO, Netflix, AMC, the BBC, and many others. And so the question is, what is our response in public media? Well, Downton Abbey serves, I believe, as a good case study. This series, and I'm guessing you've heard of it, garnered critical acclaim and attracted a wide, diverse, and multi-generational audience. You know, we transmit every day, 24/7, 4 streams of content. And most of my friends and acquaintances assume that I watch all of it. And I have to confess that it was after the first season of Downton Abbey that I finally got focused on it. It was my 26-year-old daughter who turned me on to it. And I was delighted that my 26-year-old daughter was just passionate about this PBS series. It was a hit, as you know, and a cultural phenomenon. On WTTW, the series came in second consistently with tough competition. The night of the Super Bowl, everybody was watching either Downton Abbey or the Super Bowl. And admittedly, we came in second, but that was good enough, I think, that night. Same happened with the Oscars, the Golden Globes, and the Grammys. And nationally, it came out ahead of such popular drama series as Game of Thrones, Mad Men, American Horror Story, and others. There were between 850,000 and 1 million online streams of each episode. There were, and this is content that involved constant chatter on social media. Downton Abbey is now entering its final season. Dang. It really has been a game changer, though, and Repeating that magic is a piece in the puzzle for the future. Here are some ideas in no particular order of how we will do that. Of course, more smart, scripted drama series. We must build upon the popularity of Downton Abbey and our other British dramas by creating similarly dramatic and addictive content based on interesting times in history. These period dramas are just fascinating, and it's an opportunity to teach as well as to entertain. And we are doing this with the upcoming Civil War medical drama called Mercy Street, coming in January. Executive producers Ridley Scott, I think you've heard of him, David Zucker, and other Hollywood producers and actors are attached to it. And here's hoping we have another Downton success story on our hands. I think there's a good chance. Second, real in-depth history. Everyone likes a well-told story, and few are better storytellers than Ken Burns. His rich, multi-part project, such as the Civil War that we've talked about, the national parks, and most recently, the Roosevelts, An Intimate History. These projects illustrate that there may be no better source for good stories than history. Ken's work is not only compelling, but it helps us learn about the stories and ideals of America. And as I said earlier, Ken's films are released in binge-watching chunks, on air and online. For example, all 14 hours of the Roosevelts were served up on WTTW over the course of 1 week in September 2014, but they were also released online, and so you could catch up and you could binge watch. As Ken and perhaps public media's greatest ambassador would surely tell you, this is the sort of content that can only live and prosper on public media. Future Ken Burns projects include films about baseball great Jackie Robinson, novelist Ernest Hemingway, country music, and the Vietnam War, and he's got a long pipeline of many more to come. Third, uncovering the truth. We must cement public media's reputation as truth tellers, with more hard-hitting investigative content across platforms. This is where public media really shines. Our public affairs content is completely independent, with no ties to advertising or commercial interests, giving us unique access to public officials and places, off limits to everyone else, and is not afraid to be controversial. Think of the Frontline special, Obama at War, which took us deep inside the administration's struggle to deal with ISIS and the Syrian civil war. Or League of Denial, which focused a much-needed spotlight on brain injuries in professional football. It also called out the NFL for its failure to adequately protect and treat the players, and this actually ignited a national debate that continues to this day. Fourth, trusted journalistic ethics and civil discourse. The same high standards apply to WTTW's news magazine, Chicago Tonight. There's a reason Mayor Emanuel is a regular guest. He knows the interview will be tough, but fair. And his appearances allow him to answer to an astute, informed, and civic-minded audience using questions on our website and social channels. And he can speak in complete sentences, not in sound bites. This kind of responsible journalism and civil discourse has become increasingly crucial since the successful arrival of cable news, the internet, and social media have changed the way news is reported on, discussed, and disseminated. And in this age, when anyone with a computer, an internet connection, and a point of view is suddenly a pundit with an audience, whether he or she knows what they're talking about or not. So we really need, more than ever, to have a scrupulously honest and judicious editorial process in place that separates opinion from fact and important news stories from gossip. Never is this operating principle more important than during an election cycle. In public media, we are barred from accepting traditional paid political advertising. So instead of the endless attack ads, our viewers hear from the candidates themselves. That's a concept. In moderated forums that encourage rational and issues-based discourse. Chicago Tonight gives candidates for local office free air or online time to present their platforms directly to voters so they can make educated decisions when they head to the polls. On the national front, Frontline presents objective biographies of each of the major contenders for president, and correspondents from the NewsHour and from NPR provide comprehensive coverage of the conventions and the candidates on the campaign trail. Goes without saying. I mean, we all know this. A democracy cannot function properly without an informed citizenry. And we all know that many media outlets today mostly tell just one side of the story. For 12 consecutive years, a nationwide public opinion survey has confirmed that PBS and its member stations are rated #1 in trust among nationally known institutions, including commercial TV networks. So in a partisan media landscape, trusted, unbiased reporting is increasingly rare. It plays a vital role, and I believe it always will. The future we all hope for depends on it. Fifth, telling the stories nobody else will tell. Another very important part of the future of public media will be telling the human interest stories found nowhere else. Think Ira Glass, perfect example. These stories you'll never hear anywhere else. And of course, according to the Center for Media and Social Impact, PBS has other examples as well, particularly the PBS film series POV and Independent Lens. According to the Center for Media and Social Impact, quote, these series bring into national focus voices and issues not usually heard in mainstream media. WTTW has a longtime local partner in this endeavor. Last April, a Chicago-based production company Kartemquin Films teamed up with Independent Lens to produce The Home Stretch, the story of 3 homeless teens in a quest for a brighter future as they grapple with Chicago winters, the pressures of high school, their own feelings of abandonment and hopelessness. And so this is another example of the difference public media can make in bringing real issues and putting real attention to our diverse communities and helping us understand what's going on in our neighborhoods. This is a core value that public television has in common with our friends in public radio. And close collaboration among the various public media entities, American Public Media, NPR, PBS, PRI, and PRX, is imperative to our future and our sustainability. We are stronger when we work together. And I'm happy to say that this is happening across the country as well as here in Chicago. WTTW and WBEZ are currently working together to install a robotic camera or 2 in the newsroom at WBEZ to provide a pathway for exchange of video and audio content. Pooling our journalistic resources will make us both stronger and help us serve our communities more effectively. Sixth, a commitment to arts and culture. Another vital component of public media's strategy for the future is not pulling back from, but diving deeper into arts and culture. For many, their first and perhaps only exposure to the greatest theater, dance, visual art, opera, orchestras, and other musical genres come from public media, including classical and fine arts radio stations such as our own WFMT. WTTW has also presented many local documentaries about the arts across Chicago and Illinois, as well as regular Art Beat segments on Chicago Tonight. And early next year, we will be debuting a weekly Arts Half Hour Art Beat program. Of course, nationally, great performances live from Lincoln Center, our own soundstage, Austin City Limits, offer our viewers a front row seat to content that may inspire the next great actor, singer, ballerina, painter, playwright, or violin virtuoso among us. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra radio broadcasts live from the Civic Opera House, the New York Philharmonic this week. These are all WFMT programs that bring the best music in the world to every corner of the world, most recently adding China to our daily reach. So next time you're in Beijing or Shanghai, you'll hear Bill McLaughlin on Exploring Music. President Obama, when introducing the winners at the annual Kennedy Center Honors, said, quote, "The arts have always been the power to challenge and the power to inspire." I would go on to say that the arts enrich all of our lives. They encourage us to dream of a world beyond the everyday, to foster our creativity and use our imagination. And that can have some far-reaching effects. In 2012, research by the National Endowment for the Arts found that early exposure to the arts resulted in at-risk youth having better academic outcomes, higher career aspirations, and more civic engagement. Over our history, America has built the largest, most powerful, and most competitive economy in the world. That's not news to anyone here. And of course, business acumen and technological skill are very important and have taken us a long way. But would Americans come as far as we have without the vision, creativity, and innovation that the arts promote? Just look at how Steve Jobs married artistry and technology to build one of the largest and most successful companies in the world. So it's important to understand that the arts are not an extracurricular aspect of life, but a critical part of it and our global competitiveness. Seventh, science and nature. What will inspire the future scientists, zoologists, astronomers, archaeologists, medical researchers, engineers, and technical wizards? Well, public media will continue to play a role in this with programs such as Nature and Nova that will take us on expeditions to ancient worlds, inside the intricate workings of our brains, to the bottom of the ocean, to rainforests, deserts, and mountaintops, to the ends of the earth and the far reaches of the universe. Imagine, for instance, venturing into a remote cave to discover artifacts that change everything we thought we knew about the evolution of our own species. This has recently occurred. Or, as a little more lighter example, we've actually explored closer to home, going inside the minds of those canines or felines that share our living spaces to find out what they really think of us and what they're really up to when we're not home. In short, there is so much more to learn about our world and everything in it, and the possibilities for our viewers to explore it are limitless. Eighth, digital content. This could be another whole talk, but I'll be done in about 4 hours. So, producers are now focused on creating content for multi-linear and mobile platforms. TV, web and app, email, and social media are part of any content and distribution strategy. When we premiere our new neighborhood special on Chicago's South Side later this month, for example, not only will we release the show on air, online, and via our video app, but we'll have community events, community outreach, community engagement, and launch a mobile website with extra content, extra video, and features designed to engage viewers beyond the broadcast. Extending our content to digital platforms helps us bring more content to life, stimulate audience interaction, and create a long tail for the life of the original content. And finally, commercial-free educational content. This brings us to the very youngest and most impressionable members of our community. In today's fast-moving and increasingly competitive society, early childhood education is critical to later success. Public media's leading-edge, non-commercial, educational content must continue into the future, with two-way engagement with kids across platforms and in the community. This is a big responsibility that we don't take lightly. WTTW alone reaches almost 90% of all households, 90%, with children across our region. And like the other genres we've talked about today, we focus on subjects that mainstream kids media producers never would. For example, can you imagine SpongeBob encouraging children to turn off and step away from their TVs? But later this month, PBS will premiere Nature Cat, a new series co-produced by WTTW with creative local filmmakers Spiffy Pictures that does just that. Children's programming can have a higher purpose than just to entertain. It can help our kids develop into thoughtful adults who will take steps to protect our natural resources and make our world a better place. If this isn't central to our future on this planet, I don't know what is. So, yes, the world is changing rapidly. We all know that. And with it, everything, including the media landscape, in ways that were unimaginable back in 1961, when our own Newton Minow, then FCC chairman, charged broadcasters to, quote, provide a wider range of choices, more diversity, more alternatives. He also said, in addition to his famous vast wasteland accusation, quote, What you broadcast through the people's air affects the people's taste, their knowledge, their opinions, their understanding of themselves and of their world and their future, end quote. Public media at its core strives to do exactly that. In the past, in the present, and in the future, we must remember, as Ken Burns told the Los Angeles Times, quote, literally what we stand for. Public media presents and produces the best children's science, nature, public affairs, arts, and history programs on television, radio, and online. We are dedicated to doing things well and doing things that last. So what do I see as the future of public media? I know one thing. The media landscape will not be getting smaller or quieter. Going forward, it's clear that there will be more noise, more infotainment, more commercialization, more heated political rhetoric, and more than ever, Americans will need the reasoned, rational voice of its impartial, nonpartisan public media to help us sort it all out. We will need public media to help educate our children, expand our horizons, embrace diversity, learn from our history, understand our place in the ecosystem, and aspire to be better human beings. Public media is America's largest classroom and its greatest stage. Across all of its platforms, we will continue to innovate, we will continue to grow, and most importantly, we will continue to tell the stories that others don't. That has been our mission from the start, and no matter how much time passes and change swirls around us, our mission and values will remain the same into the future. So in closing, to paraphrase something presidents are fond of saying at the top of their annual State of the Union address, the state of public media is strong, and its future is bright.
Well done, Dan. Well, we'll see if there are any questions, since half the audience works for this guy. Probably not too many negative ones, but I do want to thank TTW. I'm going to Oxford next August, and I've already getting my bulletproof vest because I never knew there was a murder a week taking place in Oxford. It's one of the scariest places. I think Spike Lee may be going there to do something on Ox-Rack. Now you see why they don't let me back on TTW, don't you? Okay. Once again, not on an official card and anonymous. You got a lot of work to do, Dan. A lot of work to do. All right, here we go. Since this is the only question, it's, well, we got one more. Well, if this one is signed, oh, wait a minute. President, we forgot to introduce Jim Mabey, Chairman, Network Chicago, with William Blair. Okay, we have two questions, and that's it. Time's running short. You know we have to stay on time. Gerardo Gardinas, AARP. It is great. You don't like this one. It is great that WTTW continues to embrace watchdog journalism, but other news outlets are abandoning it. How can investigative journalism be rescued? Hell of a question.
Wow. If I had the answer to that, I think I could move to the Caribbean and enjoy all that great journalism. You know, I think we're trying to do our part in rescuing it. And I also believe strongly that the digital environment is going to be a big part of it too. It makes it it's a lot cheaper to engage in creating content and reporting and doing good journalism if you have the fact checking and the proper editorial process, because you don't have to have a fleet of delivery trucks. You don't have to have huge multi-million-dollar presses, and there are, or even transmitters up on top of the Willis Tower. I mean, there are ways for journalism to thrive in a more grassroots way, assuming that it's done responsibly. But that's a very tough question, and all I can tell you is that public media is doing our best to address that head on. All you have to do is turn to WBEZ every morning and WTTW in the evening, and you're going to hear a lot of really good journalism and see it too.
Well, this is the City Club, so here we go. Jill Bremer. Where are you, Jill? Okay. The Edge Executive Coaching and Training. That right? Good. You ready? Here we go. Be ready to listen to this, sir. What percentage of WTTW's income comes from the government? And how much influence do they have over content? Or is it all privately funded? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
This reminds me of a time, oh boy, it was 15 years ago. I was in the office of the FCC chairman, and I was asking him, along with more than a couple of my counterparts from the other major markets, to look at the underwriting requirements that the FCC was putting on us, and tried to explain to him why it's vital for our sustainability. And when we told him that our federal funding comprised, on average, of those stations in the room, about 4% of our budgets. I mean, he was looking at our leave-behinds in a swivel chair, and when we said that, he swiveled his chair and he dropped the papers on the table. He said, "What? Did you say 4 or 40%? We said 4%. He said, "I had no idea." So I think it's a common public perception. It might be part of our own fault. We call ourselves public media. It conjures up images of public libraries, public utilities, the CTA. But really, most of us are mostly privately funded, particularly those of us in the major markets. We are a nonprofit, private 501c3 corporation. And for WTTW, all government funding is somewhere around 6%. So 94 cents out of every operating dollar we have to raise or earn privately. And as for influence, I think that given that small sliver, there really isn't a great danger of that. The federal funding is distributed by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and it has been set up as a firewall from political interference. And you know recently that there are members of Congress in recent election cycles who have called for the elimination of all federal funding for public media. And one of the things the thing that happens every time is a deep, bipartisan, grassroots effort or response comes pouring in. And we know this. I mean, we know that all you have to do is see how bipartisan it is, and look at all of the national research every year that places public media very high on the list of trusted institutions. Congress is dead last. And so I'm not too worried about the influence of a 4 to 6% funding stream for us, given the support, the bipartisan support that we enjoy across America.
Before we get to the last question, obviously City Club of Chicago is doing its bit, aren't we?
Sure is.
And I could vouch that we have no damn influence over anything. Not that the chairman occasionally has tried. Okay, this will be a one-word answer, and you could probably guess it. It's from Anonymous. Many members of the City Club have that last name. Are you ready for this one? Stella, you may have wrote this question. How can I get on Check Please?
Well, I think we've had about 100,000 or more of people ask that question. And best thing you can do is send David Manilow an email with that question and your favorite restaurant, and hope that he'll call.
Round of applause.